Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I am joined today by Amanda Seales. You have seen her on the show before. Amanda, welcome back.
I am so happy to be here, and thank you for having me, and thank you for doing all the work that you do to keep folks from sliding into ignorance. Like they have to try, you know, with the words that you be putting out there, the work that you putting out there. It's like, no, y'all are willful because it's out here.
Well, first of all, I have to say, kudos to you. I saw you met up with some of my comrades. I totally love this. Afeni said, think pieces are loading. Yeah, so it's you and Bree and Dr. Jill Stein, Butch Ware, Afeni. I forget this young woman. Yeah. So what was this all about here? Were you in DC?
I was.
Okay.
I was in DC. There was a gathering of thought-minded people. I mean, some of us were in there for that purpose. Some of us were there for there was a protest against the AFL-CIO or with the AFL-CIO. And then there was a talk that Jill Stein and Butch Ware were doing at Busboys and Poets. And so after all of that, there was a convening of folks. And by that point, me and Brianna both had our shoes off and were relaxed on the couch. But it was honestly dope because I feel like I got to have conversations that need to happen off camera that are also, and I want to be clear when I say that. It's not that it has to happen off camera because it's like private surreptitious, which sometimes that is the case, but also it's because when people are on camera, they sometimes don't talk the way they talk. Like, and not even trying to be shady, but it's like on camera is a different kind of, people feel like they got to perform, you know? And so that's why, like, I know like my podcast, Small Doses, which just ended after 7.5 years. It used to be very different when we would have guests before we had video. Like, I feel like people were a lot more willing, a lot more free in how they would speak than when the camera's on.
Yeah.
Relaxed, so to speak. So it was really nice to be able to have those conversations, also to build, you know, like I think sometimes people feel like the only thing that's taking place in the world is if it's on social media, and that's just not the case. There's a lot of building that needs to happen offline.
I know. I continue to tell people this. They think that everything happens on camera. And I had to remind them, we're not on camera most of the week. We're not on camera. Like, things happen off camera. There's conversations that happen that are not in front of a camera. You know, it's one of those things you have to remind people. But you're talking about like building, right? And I think at this point in time, you know, a lot of people I think are just really down or disappointed and politically with both sides. I've heard it from even conservatives that supported Trump, not happy with Trump. I've heard it from Democrats who are not happy with Trump, but also not happy with the Democratic Party. They feel like the Democratic Party isn't fighting hard enough. And I think that at this point, when you talk about like the solutions and things like that, one of the things I've been telling people is that we need to find ways to build dual power. Right. So I think that we have been conditioned to believe, particularly in this country, that the only answer is electoral politics. And history shows us that's not true.
It's not even an answer. Like, there was like a whole study done in 2014 that showed that what the constituencies are asking for is not reflected in Congress. So once we see that, we should know that moving forward, anything that leans on that as a methodology is impractical.
Yeah. The Martin Gillen study.
He's like, yep. I've been trying to tell
you. I've been trying to tell people that Princeton study from Professor Gillens, he made it very clear that most of the policy that is passed benefits those that are wealthy, not those that are, you know, like, and so I think more people are starting to see that. But I think that everyone is looking at what Trump is doing right now. Like, the SNAP benefits is a big one. right? And people are in bread lines. Like the lines are getting longer. The food bank said they don't even know if they're going to have enough food because this is more people than they're used to accommodating. And then we get the announcement here in Massachusetts that Donald Trump is not sending us any funds for our SNAP program for November. So I mean, people here, they're kind of screwed. But then I point back to the community, right? Like this is where mutual aid comes in. That's why that's so important. And I think that we need to get back to that type of society where we can depend on the community and we're not looking around and just hoping that these politicians in DC do the right thing.
I mean, they've literally never done the right thing. Like they've never, ever done the right thing. Like the whole thing about the Democrats, I feel like people want the Democrats to do something that they have never actually done. They were never an oppositional party. They never came from a point of like, we're for the people. They just was not as bad. They actually were the wackest ones. And then the other ones came along and were like, you know what? We're going to outdo your whackness. Like that's essentially what happened. So, you know, when I look at everything that's going on, Sabs, I think about how the first phase of this that's going to have to happen is literally breaking ourselves out of thinking this is the only way that we can exist. And so, you know, I'm here to talk about my show, What Would the Ancestors Say? Because even in talking to people about how they can see a new future, like our limitations oftentimes are just as long as our time span, like our own mortal time span, even though there's so much knowledge and so much wisdom that has come before us that is also like viscerally, like it's actually in us, in our DNA, but also in the governance of indigenous governance, also in the mysticism. Like the idea of imagination for a lot of people is like people think that that's like silly to imagine a new future. I've had people literally be like, well, how are you imagining one if we don't have one? How do you think you get one without imagining one?
Right. Like the civil rights movement, right? Like, didn't they imagine a different future?
Like, do you think Nat Turner popped off just on a casual? Like, no, he was like, this is whack. And then he saw an eclipse and that eclipse was like, yeah, it's time to pop off. Like Frederick Douglass talks about in his autobiography that he just was like, this ain't it. Like and he was like, you know, I realized that they kept trying to convince me that this is all there is because they need me to believe that to go along with the idea of slavery. And so he said, once he overheard Massa talking about that, he realized he had cracked the code. So like what I'm trying to do is crack our code mentally, right? So with What Would the Ancestors Say? Like it started off as a one-woman show that I developed over the last year after I had been blacklisted by the Zionists, right? So then I was pushed out of stand-up and I said, okay, I'm about to do this one-woman show that's been on my heart and in my mind. Now's the time. And I started doing the one-woman show. And then over time, I realized like, I actually need to put this on paper. Like we have these texts from, because I talked about this last time I was here, like we're in a cycle, right? So like we are back in another version of the civil rights movement. Like we're right back, like, and across the globe. Like we're seeing the Sahel states taking their independence back the same way that like Ghana and Congo was trying to do in the 60s, right? We're seeing the effort of the United States to try to dispose of socialism within within the Western Hemisphere, the same thing that they were trying to do with the Cold War. So right, we're in a full circle. And in that full circle moment, I'm like, okay, I need to be part of the edutainment part of that full circle moment, right? When we saw out of the civil rights movement, we saw Black folks actively saying, it's not just enough for us to have laws. We need to have our cultural, social identity spaces, all of our own. And we need to be able to do that loudly. And I'm like, okay, how do I contribute to that? In not only creating spaces online, creating performance spaces, but also in text. We don't have like the Fire Next Times of now, you know, like I feel like it ends up coming out as influencers. I feel like it's all digital, but it's like not on the page. And so I said, I said, I need to challenge myself to put it on the page. And so I actually sat down and wrote What Would the Ancestors Say? which by the way is very different than just doing it off the top of my head as improv. And it forced me to do so much more research, Sabs, and so much more deep like thought and philosophical thought. And what it ended up becoming is I think I created somewhat of a new genre, because it's like reading a high vibrational Instagram scroll, because I'm performing. So like in the play, I do characters, I do lecture, I do dialogue, etc. But on the page, it ends up reading as like these different topics in these different ways, but they're very dense in a quick fashion. So a lot of us don't have the attention span to read an entire Noam Chomsky book to get the concept of, manufactured consent. But within What Would the Ancestors Say, you gonna get the concept of of manufactured consent, and you're gonna get it through humor, you're gonna get it through poetry, you're gonna get it through dialogue, etc. So I'm gonna be doing the live stream as well as the book release on November 8th, and I'm self-publishing because I used to think that you needed to be with a big publisher to matter, and now I feel so lucky to be able to go directly to the people and not sell my book on Amazon and not sell my book on Barnes, and really be able to be honest in a full way. Because when you go into those spaces, they definitely stop you. That's why I bought my book back from Simon & Schuster.
And I don't blame you. I want to show people here your website, What Would the Ancestors Say? So it's a book and the performance, the one woman show, and you're going on tour.
I am. I'm going to do a book tour. Yes. And these are just some dates. And I don't know why it looks janky like that. So I need to get to work. But so yes, I'm going to do a book tour with book signings. And I feel like I've just given a lot in this last 2 years. And it's really been dope to see people be open to bringing me into their spaces and seeing the value in our exchange of like me physically coming there and bringing my audience there, and them saying like, that is a valid enough exchange for us. And we're going to let you keep 100% of your sales because we know that you've done 100% of the work. Because by the way, I didn't just write the book. I learned InDesign so I could lay out the book. Which
That's
was
right.
Struggle.
Well, I guess my question is, because I saw, I don't want to spoil it for people, but I did see a clip of it on your YouTube channel of What Would the Ancestors Say? Mm-hmm. And one of the things I have to ask, like, I never figured out how people, this is why I have a lot of respect for comedians, because it's not easy to be funny, and it's not easy to make people laugh. And so I always kind of look at comedians as like, wow, you can make all of these people laugh, and not just once, but like multiple times. Where do you find that? Where does that come from? Like, did you just wake up one day and you're like, I think I can be funny, I'm going to make people laugh? Or did it just naturally come to you?
I've just always been a funny gal. And also Grenadians in general are typically funny. Like, we are a funny island. And I grew up with my mother who's Grenadian, like there's just, there is a history and a tradition of like, playing the dozens, and people people having these wild nicknames, and like you got to be on your toes. Like there's like a wittiness that I feel like is a part of Caribbean culture oftentimes, and so there's that. Also, like I feel like I've just always been somebody who sees the world through a different lens than most, and that ends up helping with finding what's funny in the world. Like I might look at something that other people looked at 12 different ways, but then when I look at it, I'm like, no, you don't see that? That's hilarious. Which ends up, becoming a superpower, because especially in these times, we are so just inundated all the times with hopelessness and frustration and negativity that finding the funny ends up being like a necessary release. But the key for me is like, how do I find the funny to allow you to release, but not allow you to escape? Like, I don't want you to go too far and then not come back.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, right? Like I could never do this. And I've watched people get up on stage during open mic night and just go for it and just wing it and say, all right, I'm going to make everybody laugh here. Like I could never do it. So I always, when I watch people like do it, I'm just like, oh my God, like, how do you do that? And I've been to these shows like live. And I love to go see like shows, and I just sit there and I'm just in such awe that someone can get up on the stage and do that, right? And how do you find like a way to make humor in these times, right? When in the time where a lot of people just feel kind of down and out and kind of hopeless.
I mean, I really feel like it's just the way that my brain is wired. And I think a lot of comedians will tell you that. Like, our brain is just wired to always seek out any level of funny, to the point now where even when you're not trying, it just shows up. You know, like I ran into somebody the other day that was like, man, I watched your video where you were reacting to finding out that that guy had gotten unalived while he was at a college. And I watched that thing 7 times. It was hilarious. And I was not trying to be funny. Like I was literally just watching like, damn, that's crazy. And so I think it's also just, there's a rhythm to comedy, right? Like some people can just dance. Like it doesn't matter how hard I try. Even if I have rhythm, my body doesn't move a certain way that other dancers move, right? Like their bodies exist in the world in a certain way. Comics, like our rhythm of how we understand like the movement of the world is a different thing than other people. We are literally on a rhythm that finds humor in pauses. We find funny in the most nondescript places. Like I can find the funny in how somebody used a comma in a sentence. And it's just, that's the rhythm I'm on. Like, that's just the vibration I'm on. So to me right now, it ends up being really important, not just for other people, but for myself, right? Like I be trying to find, I'm like, you got to keep the humor to keep you elevated. I'm looking forward to the book tour also because like you get to have that physical interaction with folks, right? Like we get to be in that analog exchange. And that is one thing I do miss about not doing stand-up is that when you throw that out and that humor, that laughter comes back at you, that is real tangible energy that like you soak up like the sun. I mean, it really does restore you.
Yeah, that's what I really think is great that you also made this as a book. How long did it take you to write the book?
Oh, Sabrina. So I was writing my memoir from February 2024 to May 3rd, 2025. And I was writing that for Simon & Schuster. And I was writing that whole time, okay? It ended up being 150,000 words. And then my editor was like, I'm going on maternity leave. And then she also had left like her edit notes. And then when I read her edit notes, it was like, oh, not only are you a hater, you're a Zionist. Got it. So then that was that. And and then this new editor that she had put me in touch with that she like passed me off to was actually an assistant editor. And she calls me and is like, hey, so your book is 150,000 words and it actually needs to be 75,000 words. So can you cut 75,000 words by Monday? This was on a Thursday. Is there any chapters that you're just like not married to?
What?
So I'm like, wait, what? And the book was supposed to come out November 4th. So she was like, well, if you can't do it, then you can turn it in 2 weeks and it'll come out in February. So I started really trying to figure out, like, how can I think in an abundance mindset about this? And when it boiled down to it, I realized if I put this book out, this memoir with Simon & Schuster, I'm going to end up having to do press in all the mainstream spaces that I can't stand, that I know better than, right? Like that I look down, that I really at this point consider to be war criminals. Right? Like, and I'm also going to then be putting this work into the space that is more about like celebrity. And I'm not even on that wave no more. Like that's not the path that I'm on. And then girl, an eagle flew towards me while I was talking to my business partner on the phone. And when the eagle flew towards me, I went upstairs and I looked at my book of my pocket book of spirit guides. And it was like, you need to zoom out and look at your life on a bigger level. You need to connect with your spirit guides about your creativity. And in that moment, I was just like, oh, I got to buy this book back. So I ended up buying the book back, which that check still hurts me in my soul. But then a month later, I was like, but you still need to put out a book this year. Like there's a book in you that needs to happen. Because the written aspect is very imperative when we see how much effort is being put to silence it, to erase it, to make people illiterate. So you need to create a piece of work that is additional to the canon that challenges that. And when I had What Would the Ancestors Say, you know, I was developing it by doing free shows at the People's Forum. It just hit me one day, this needs to be on paper, because the lessons that are in this and the lessons that are in it are not just like historical, but they're also philosophical. They're also lessons about like our connection to spirit and our empathic skills that that capitalism has attempted to, you know, disassociate us from. I was like, you need to put this on paper, because people need to be able to read this in their own time. Like when you do a one-woman show, when it's done and they go home. But you know, I know the value of being able to go back and read something over and over and over again and come to new places and spaces with it. And so I said, okay, you're going to sit down and do this. And so from July to last week, I was writing, but the book also has illustrations. So I did all the illustrations in the book as well. So each section has a different illustration, whether it's Harriet, and there are illustrations of some ancestors we know. This is an ancestor I created named Willie, who talks about the reality around Juneteenth, and that, yes, the enslaved people did know that it was Juneteenth. This is Pac. And, and then while I was writing, this is Malcolm. And while I was writing and drawing, we also lost Asada. So I did an illustration of Asada. And the theme here is that our ancestors are on call. So that's why you see each ancestor on a different type of phone device, because we are connected to them. And some of them are armed, because we need to be protected in this realm and in that which we are talking to. So like, it has taken that full time. Then I was like, oh, I guess I need to do a forward. So then I did a forward. Then I was like, you know what? I need to do additional resources. So there's a list at the back of the book of additional resources, films, essays, speeches, books, etc., that folks can continue their education of the themes that I write about in the book, to expound upon.
Wow, Amanda, you are so talented.
Oh, thanks.
No, I'm serious. Like, not everyone can do comedy, can make people laugh, can draw, can write, can do a part. I mean, it's a lot, right? Like, so you have a lot of different skills, and I think that's I think that says a lot.
Thank you. For me, what it says is these are all the ways in which my ancestors have armed me to arm us. I do not know why we're here, Sabrina. Like, as humans, like, I don't know. But I believe that we are here to continue a quest for connection to this earth that is positive for the entire universe. Like, I don't think of us just as a planet. I think of us as an entire universe. I consider myself to be someone with a whole universe in me. And when I think about how fortunate I am to have all these artistic gifts, I feel like that is me being imbued with all these ways that I am connected to, like, spirit, that I'm connected to a knowledge base that's beyond our colonialist, capitalist mind frame. Because the indigenous people were connected to the earth many ways through arts, whether it was painting on walls or tapestries or creating dyes or, you know, building their dwellings with mud, etc. Like, we are really all artists in a number of ways. We just don't get the chance to be. But when we connect to that, we end up finding a whole other set of tools that I believe we need in order to fight these people once and for all. And I say in the book, like, we are not a culmination. We are a continuance.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. The picture of Malcolm X there. I went to Malcolm X's family home recently. A lot of people don't know his family home in Boston is severely neglected. And I put I put it in the documentary because I use that as an example to prove a point. There is a section where we go through some of the parts where Malcolm X used to frequent when he still lived in Boston. But I wonder sometimes, like you mentioned Malcolm X, you mentioned Tupac. I wonder if they were alive today, like what would they say with like everything that's going on?
Yet we tried to tell. That's what they would say. You niggas is still on this. Really? Like that's what they would say. And I feel like people like us are here to continue that messaging for them. Like my mother is from Grenada. Malcolm's mother is from Grenada. My father is from Roxbury. Malcolm is from Roxbury. So I feel compelled to carry on because Malcolm was also highly annoyed with the nonsense. And so I feel compelled to continue that annoyance. And what I bring in the artistry, I feel like you bring in an artistic, neurodivergent ability to find the details and really fine tune it for people. One thing about Sabrina is she's going to be like, y'all didn't see that? Look at this picture from 7 years ago. Now, as you can see by the trajectory of the sun in this picture, those Democrats was not fighting for you. Like, that's what I feel like you do on a regular basis. And those are the things that get dulled. You know, they get dulled by having to just put up with nonsense and do jobs we don't want to do and live in a world that's constantly telling us that we're not valuable. And so those things have to be like reinvigorated and reconnected. And, you know, so I also just appreciate you even giving me the space to come on here. And I can't wait for you to come on Views for Amanda Land, because we have to always be in connection in this way, whether it's on camera or off camera. And y'all have to be doing that same thing with each other, because this is how resistance is formed. Don't ever get tricked into thinking that resistance requires an individual leader. It does not.
Yep. That's what we try to tell people. Like, if you look at the Black Panthers, and they talked a lot about, you know, the horizontal leadership. I mean, that really does matter, that type of structure. And that's why I always tell people too, there's a difference between mutual aid and charity. That charity can be top down, like the Red Cross, for example. But I think like when I look back to someone like Tupac, I mean, at the time, like, I mean, I was so young, but so was he. He was so young, and he was so ahead of his time, Amanda. And when Tupac died, people don't remember, like, when Tupac died, like, that was a really sad moment for a lot of us, because he was so far. He was trying to warn people back then about the wars. He was telling people like what the plan was to obviously continue to devastate the Black community. He was telling you ahead of time what was up. From what I understood, he was trying to start a new resurgence of the Black Panthers. Like, he was so young, but he was so intelligent and so far ahead of his time. And I think back, like, if Tupac were still alive today, you know, same thing. He would probably like, didn't I tell you guys this over 20 years ago?
So there's something very consistent between people like Pac, Malcolm, Fred Hampton. It's about self-awareness, which is why there's such an effort to disconnect us from being aware of not only our histories and identities, but our mindfulness and understanding of our emotions and like our individual purposes in the world, right? Like, Malcolm was out here willy-nilly, Wile E. Coyote until he was given self-awareness and understanding about his existence. And then he was connected to his soul. Then that became a whole other ability to see. Someone like Tupac was raised in a home where there was such a constant awareness around these truths. So he was very early on connected to his soul. Fred Hampton was 21. And he was very early on a part of the Panthers. So many of the Panthers, like the median age of the Panthers was 19 to 20. Because you had all these young men and women who were getting all of this political education. And it was like, oh, well, we got to jump on. And they came right out of a civil rights era where they were seeing the 18, 19, 20-year-olds doing freedom rides and doing sit-ins. And, so there was an awareness. That's why I get really irritated sometimes when I'm just trying to talk us into knowledge on this internet, and folks will be like, but what are you doing? What's the solution? And I'm like, I'm trying to talk us into reconnecting to our soul so we can have the ability to see our full capabilities of fight and vibration. That is what would the ancestors say seeks to do on stage and on the page. Like that is what the actual purpose of this piece of work is for, to reconnect us, to reinvigorate our curiosity around these things. I have a rule that if the government of the United States or any of these colonial powers have told you that something was bad, that means it is your business to learn about it. They told you witches was terrible. We gonna burn them at the stake. So you should be all about learning what the heck was going on with witches. And then you find out these was women that owned property and they were healers. And that's why they was burning them, because they had independence and they was also healing. And so they were undermining the ability for them to try and use the church as the only place that you could be healed. And then they can't get money from you.
Mm-hmm.
So, for me, it's like I was going to go get a PhD, Sabs, and I went to a information session. And in that information session, I realized like, oh, I could actually teach this. So I actually don't need to be here. I need to be somewhere learning things that I actually can't learn in the institution. I need to be learning the knowledge that the institutions have deemed unworthy and unuseful. So I need to be learning herbology. I need to be learning astronomy and astrology. I need to be learning indigenous governance, right? Like I need to be learning. So like I'm in the process of creating what I've called a metaphysical resistance PhD. And it is learning practices of knowledge that have been deemed or demonized in order to create a template for how we can reconnect to methods that can imbue our resistance with more efficacy. That's a whole deeper conversation, Sabs. It's a whole deeper conversation.
Do you notice who else has been, and maybe you've seen this, who else has been starting to question the things that have been demonized?
Ooh.
Candace Owens.
Oh, I don't like her.
I know, but it's just interesting, like how people's journeys.
I need people to stand up and say, you know what? I have been fucking y'all over, and I need to practice. Like I need to see like loud atonement and then restorative justice practices before I'm trying to listen to anybody who's gone down that road. I have atoned for being pulled into kowtowing for Democrats and Biden. I do restorative justice practices to not allow for that same trajectory to be just put on the people. And I want to see people who have gone down those roads. Like, all these white men who be in the government and then they about to die, or they start to feel their morality and they're like, let me do a documentary real quick and what was really going on. Like, go watch John McNamara's documentary. He's like, look at how Jeffrey Sachs be talking now.
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, everybody comes into things, I think, on their own time, right? But I do think, I think particularly in the podcast space, one thing I don't appreciate is when people who have criticized, when they do have those conversations with those people, they don't bring up those issues. Like it's just something that I've noticed. Like I know if, for example, if you sat down and had that conversation with said people, then I know that you would bring those things up. But I think we both have seen that people who have criticized those things, when they have those conversations with those people, when they actually get to talk to them face to face, they don't bring those issues up. So what's that really all about?
You know what I think that's all about in a lot of ways? I think honestly, the most generous way that I will look at that is that we do live in a nation of passivity, right? Where like that's considered polite. Like avoidance is considered polite. Like I have always been called difficult and extra and loud because I do not believe in politeness in the way of progress. I'm going to say the thing. Now, I'm not going to curse you out when I say it, but I'm going to be like, hey, so what's this about? And folks do not like that. That is also my autism, because sometimes I don't even realize how direct it is. I'm like, how did we not? We're just not going to say that. And then people tell me later, yeah, that was a little, and I'm like, well, but it's true. So I think that there's also this effort of like, if you come on my show, I need to be polite to you and not like make you uncomfortable. But that's
then
being very generous. I'm being very generous because you're like, what's the point of coming on the show?
But then that's just like corporate media,
ain't it?
So, anywho, Amanda,
anywho.
I'm just like, I'm so happy for you. Again, I think this is awesome. Doing your own one woman show. I think this is great. I can't wait to get the book, and I wish you all the best of luck. I do.
Thank y'all. Go to amandaseals.com. Support your girl. The live stream is November 8th. So you can get a ticket to the live stream, or you can get a bundle with a ticket and a signed book. And if you are in California, in LA, you can actually get in studio tickets to come see the live stream, get the book signed and all that good stuff. And after the live stream, we'll have a ticket available for you to be able to watch the show after. So just really trying to continue a path that aligns more so as being a merchant, not a capitalist, giving folks the opportunity to engage in political education, to also support true artistry that is in resistance. And thank you for letting me come on here to talk about that, Sabs.
Thank you. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.